One moment, folks. Okay, good. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC in a moment, but first, the disclaimers and the trigger warnings. If you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are all right there in the description box for you, along with the corresponding labels. That way, if you want to deep dive into either one of those campaigns, you are definitely welcome to do so. Trigger warnings. We do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. We do use profanity. And when we talk about subjects like the Judge Rotenberg Center, Tobin World, Agape Boarding School for Boys, Kennecook Camp, and Circle of Hope, you are going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you have a child watching this channel that is 16 or younger, parental supervision is advised. Now, this is from a downloaded letter right here. And I'm going to paraphrase it for you because I've already read through it. And this, welcome to another episode 2. I am totally going to character assassinate and victim blame my son into the Stone Age. Now, why do I say this? Because it's the same crap that's always been said. Now, I'm not going to downplay serious situations. I have a heart, and I've worked in the service system. Yes, including with individuals that I was advocating for that have severe self-injurious behavior and aggressive behavior. Yes, people who have hurt their families. Yes, individuals who have destroyed property. Yes, individuals who have severely hurt themselves to the point they put themselves in hospitals. Including the fact that once upon a time, I was that child doing those types of things to myself. I am not heartless, and I will never take away from the difficulty of dealing with that type of situation. But I will also never, ever, under any circumstances, let me say that again, under any circumstances, except that the answer is torture by means of the JRC. And I would like to ask those parents directly, how is replacing me abusing myself with a direct care staff abusing me instead doing a damn thing to fix the situation? Let me talk as someone who was a part of the last generation where corporal punishment was still mainly used. You know those of us who talk that got the belt as kids, right? When those occurrences happened, they're usually, when as kids, we did very reckless and very often life-threatening, stupid crap. Right? Right? Exactly. Stupid stunts using dirt bikes to jump concrete ditches. In one case, my brother managed to, in the middle of a jump, land wrong, end his ass in mud, and proceeded to have an individual who was right behind him run him over. And the only reason why he's not paralyzed was that the mud was so thick that he just sank into it instead. Talking to an individual whose brothers used to climb to the top of the roof of the house. It would jump off with no pads, no helmets, no nothing. A girl who rode a dirt bike with no helmet, no protective gear of any kind, and then stopped wrong and got my hands caught between the metal brake and the metal handlebars, and managed to shoot up halfway up the side of the house and then went straight back down. Individuals who would do stupid, life-threatening crap that ended up with serious injuries all the time. Now, after the belting incident, would there be a change in a behavior? Yes. For 5 minutes. And then after that 5 minutes, you want to know what sets in? Anger. Resentment. Feelings of rebellion. A desire to engage in even more reckless behaviors as an act of rebellion from that anger. You know what violence spawns? More violence. So what does that mean in regards to the GED and those who use it to help stop these very, very, yes, scary behaviors? When you use it to correct those behaviors to get them to stop, what happens when you take the device away? They come back. Not only do they come back, but just like when we were kids, they come back with a vengeance. They get worse. They get more intense because now we got a grudge. We got a chip on our shoulder. Right? Yeah, that's how the real world works. I'm not saying that that is not a horrific situation to be in, where your kid actually managed to hurt one of his mother's eyes to the point she can't see it out of it anymore. I'm not going to brush that aside and say that that's not horrifying. What I'm going to tell you is using violence, and yes, just because the JRC calls it medicine does not mean intentionally inflicting harm on somebody else is not violence because they use the word treatment. It's just a disservice to me, you, and the rest of planet Earth and reason. Intentionally inflicting pain on an individual over things that they cannot control, instead of working to find out what the triggers are that are causing those extreme behaviors, does not fix your child. It's like, but now they don't engage in it anymore because they are under threat. That's how that works. Eventually, that threat will lose its sting. When that threat loses that sting, those behaviors are going to come back because you're not dealing with the behaviors or what's causing them. You're simply punishing the byproduct, which means your kid is still receiving injuries. Now they have resentment and trauma on top of it. So to that type of parent, I would ask, what happens once they are faded off the device and no longer anywhere near the JRC? What happens when it is then time for your child to have to deal with the trauma that they have been put through by that school? You think those behaviors are going to stay away forever? You see, fear doesn't work as medicine, because it can only guide behavior for a very short period of time. When that fear is no longer there, it cannot control the behaviors that come after the fear has lost its sting. It is never a permanent solution in regards to dealing with behavior. That is why physical aversives have been abandoned by the entirety of the rest of the medical model. Now, this individual talks about things I have mentioned before. Medications, behavior treatments, evals, fad diets, made popular by the autism community. First of all, no sir. They were not made popular by the autism community. They were made popular by a very specific fringe group who are convinced, in spite of literally all the evidence on planet Earth to the contrary, that vaccines is what caused this. First of all, that is the lie. Vaccines do not, hear me YouTube censors, vaccines do not cause autism. The snake oil cells you bought into was not from the autism community. It is from the snake oil salesmen who prey on the desperate parents who are locked inside the cult of the anti-vaccine movement. Do not go and blame an entire community for a fringe group and the snake oil salesmen that prey upon them. Okay? And the fad diets, for the love of God, people, can we please stop listing Jenny McCarthy as any kind of expert on what's good for autistic people, for the love of God and all that's holy. Because no, they don't work. But we were desperate, yes, I know. That doesn't make the next acceptable answer the JRC. That means you had time to do the logical thing and take your kid to individuals who specialize in working with us to find what's triggering our more extreme behaviors. How do I know this can work? Again, I was once that child. That's how I know. There are things between what I did to myself and things that were going on at the time. The fact that I've made it to 40 is a holy miracle of God. Okay? So no, I'm not discounting very dangerous situation that this particular parent describes here. The punches, the projectiles, the kicks, the property destruction. Hi, I did a lot of that. Granted, I never went after my parents, but again, remember, one of the last generations where corporal punishment was used, and in spite of how bad meltdowns get, there is a primal instinct that lived within my body that knew a hell of a lot better to try to take them on. Like to the point of animal instinct. Okay? You think I didn't try to take on my siblings? Kids at school? Walls, doors, mirrors, myself. Yeah. It's not an excuse. And this idea, but the pain makes them stop, completely negates the idea of the fact that fear is not medicine. Fear cannot be utilized as a proper treatment in order to permanently modify behavior, because fear's impact on behavior is short. Okay? fact that we are in 2025 and I even have to explain that. The fact that we still have people listening to Jenny goddamn McCarthy of all goddamn people in her non-gluten diet about how that's magically going to make your kid better is beyond me. But that should not be a reason to send your kid to the JRC for a treatment that, in spite of your desperation, your good sense should know the truth. Now, this father talks about the schools this kid has gotten thrown out of, about drywall. It talks about how now at the JRC, their son is totally changed, all smiles, everything they ever wanted. Parents, let me tell you something. If you send your kid to a center, and that afterwards, when you come to visit them, it's like all your dreams had magically manifested and come to life in front of you. You should probably see that as a red flag. If we want to break it down, you want a perfectly healthy, normal, neurotypical kid. They're not perfect. They're never picture perfect. Are you kidding me? Ever been in a public high school parking lot before? Yeah. Anything that seems that level of perfect, almost like someone was paying attention to every detail to paint a specific picture, every single alarm in your head should be going off. Even in desperate situations, taking things at face value, especially when we are talking about a school where 6 kids went to the JRC, or as they were formerly known, the BRI, those 6 kids are no longer alive. Why did that not at any point send off alarm bells? I am sympathetic to the desperate situation this particular parent was in, 100%. Absolutely. I'm not going to pretend that that situation does not exist. I'm not going to pretend that those situations are not scary as hell. I've been on home visits, people with bars on the walls. Gone to day programs where an incident was happening right in front of my eyes and screams. Okay? But I also live in reality, and I understand that the impact of fear in regards to behavior modification is extremely minimal at best. And once the threat no longer is affecting us, yeah, you haven't actually dealt with the behaviors. Fear can never permanently modify behaviors in the ways, at least not in the way that people want. You can't use it as though it's a pressure cooker, and afterwards you'll get the perfect result that you wanted. It's not how treatment works. And as long as you just keep punishing the behaviors and doing absolutely nothing to get to the bottom of what's triggering those behaviors, you're just teaching us to mask it, to push it away until it gets to a boiling point and we no longer can, and a freaking massive destruction tends to ensue. I know, because I was that child, I've done it. particular episode of me, knife and an ottoman, and my stepbrother, right just an inch away. Okay? So, sir, I sympathize with your situation. I understand, can comprehend, and know how serious of that type of situation is. But using a fear as a tool to modify behavior is not a solution. Fear cannot produce long-lasting results, and fear cannot produce a better quality of life. And when you say those things, I want you to listen to yourself. Say them out loud to yourself, and really listen, and think on if that makes some form of coherent sense to you. Fear is not a useful tool that can be used to modify behavior.